Hello, everyone. Welcome to Workforce Development Question Time with me, Darryl White, and I'm the Workforce Development Officer for the Youth Work sector in Wales. Over the past 24 hours, I've been asking colleagues across the sector to submit questions for me to answer. Now, if I didn't know the answer, I've gone to other colleagues within the sector to basically help me answer them. We've got about 6 or 7 questions we're going to get through. People that have submitted questions don't want to be identified, and that's absolutely fine. There's no judgments made for those who did do that. Thank you very much. And just so you're aware, I will keep your confidentiality given that you've submitted the question. So, don't worry about that. There are some, I think 2, that have basically would like to go on the record, which is absolutely fine. Again, no judgments made for those who didn't either. So I'm going to kickstart us with one sort of, I would say, simple question. The first question we had was, what are we doing to encourage young people and volunteers into the sector? Well, I'll be honest with you, up until recently, we haven't strategically been doing a lot. However, I would say in the last 6 months, we've really accelerated this quite heavily. So within the sector, we did have multiple IPGs. We had a workforce development IPG. They've now stopped, but we still have the workforce development function happening, and that one is the workforce development group. And as part of that group, we've got 4 subgroups. We've got a whole subgroup dedicated to promoting youth work as a career and profession. And that one is chaired by Carly Torlop from the YMCA Swansea. So she does an incredible job at chairing those meetings. But as you can imagine, with that particular subgroup, we've got a massive demand for promoting youth work as a career. We also have limited capacity within the sector as well. And also there's high demand. There's lots of people expecting quite a lot from this particular program, and I completely understand as well. But what are we doing? So yes, we've set up the subgroup to look at that, but also that subgroup has hit the ground running. There's a lot of talking, but there's so much more action. One of the first actions that we've been looking at is how we recruit young people into the workforce. The first one being is that we're actually piloting young person's unit, a qualification, to expose them to what youth work looks like. And it's basically designed for when they're making their career decisions, what that could look like. As we know, it's quite obvious what teaching is because they've been exposed to teachers. Not everyone's been exposed to youth work. So what we're doing as part of that course is we're developing the resources. We're piloting it with a group of young people and volunteers now. But the beauty of this particular course is that the qualification can be delivered to those who are 14 plus, not 16 plus, which means that if you're a youth worker in school or you're a youth worker out of school and you're working in the community, you can deliver it as well. So we're piloting it as the Youth Work Training Academy with a group of young people. However, moving forward, we would like other people to pick up those resources and deliver it within their localities as well. And I think there will be more agglomerative effects by doing that, because what we'll have then is people in the community delivering that groups of young people with the view that hopefully they stay within the workforce, and actually they see that qualification actually expose them to what how good youth work is. And I think moving forward, what we would like is we will probably deliver some train the trainer sessions for those within the sector to come together, learn how to deliver this particular subject. The first qualification we have is actually called Youth Work Public Services in Youth Work. We also got one in design phase at the moment. We're actually going through the criteria shortly, which is due to be released pretty soon, and that's more around the health and social care. But that particular unit focuses on youth work and play work together, how they differ and how they're the same. So those 2 units hopefully will be in full operation by April 2027. I appreciate that's quite a long time to wait. However, as you can imagine, we want to make sure that we give out quality resources that's been tried and tested and piloted effectively, and then we get it right. There's a lot of us working really, really hard to make sure that this particular qualification is done right. So bear with us on this one. We are trying our best, and I think there'll be a responsibility for the whole sector to get together and use these resources as well. There are other qualifications that can be used for young people. I know some people use like senior member training. There's some around leadership. There's not specifically around youth work, but it's framed around youth work as well. So we're also remembering that as well. But also we're, as a subgroup, looking at going to a series of events to promote youth work as a career. Because as you can imagine, when you go around a careers fair, there's nothing that actually jumps at you that says, have you thought about youth work? So Our job at the moment is looking at what branding do we need to look at. Now, we are going to be using the same Youth Work in Wales branding, that sort of purplish background with the yellow writing. Um, that one, we're developing some key messages about what youth work as a career looks like. And then working out, okay, so we've got youth work as a career. How do we promote that? How do we get people, exposed to what the journey of the progression route, what you can gain for such a rewarding career. So we're working really hard through that. And we're also looking at other strategies as well. But they're the two main focus points, young people and then those making their career decisions now. And then future down the line, we'll look at the people that are looking to change careers as well. So people who have gone into, like social work, for instance, they want to work with people, but maybe not so much in a formal capacity, more in the support element. Some people have gone to, formal education and teaching and thought, I like working with young people. I like that sort of educative framework, but I don't particularly like the formality, which is what youth work can offer, is that informality, isn't it? We are doing quite a bit. We've got a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong. That I'm not trying to minimize that. However, the subgroup are working very, very hard. My job is to sort of do some of the actions associated with that subgroup. Please bear with us. Hopefully we'll start to see some results from September onwards after the summer holidays. So that person was off the record. But there's one question by a colleague in Carmarthenshire Youth Support Service who has asked a question. His name's Heaven Lloyds. Thank you, Heaven, for submitting this, and thank you for allowing us to use your name in this. So Heaven at the moment is the Interim Youth Support Services Manager. And he's asked this question: given the increasing complexity of need among young people across Wales, what specific actions can be taken to address workforce capacity, recruitment and retention challenges within youth work services? And how can the sector ensure that workforce development funding translates into increased frontline support rather than simply maintaining the existing provision? That's a really good question. Thank you, Heaven, for that. I am going to break that question down into sizable chunks because that's quite a lot to answer. The first one I'm going to go to is, how to address workforce capacity. Now, that one I can't really answer, and nor can colleagues that I've spoken to. So I appreciate that's probably disappointing. Capacity is linked to funding, isn't it? Unless you're recruiting volunteers, which can increase your capacity. But if you're looking at sort of paid roles, capacity is purely linked to funding. And in Wales, we've got obviously a main source of funding through Welsh Government, especially for local authorities. They also have the Youth Support Grant, which again comes from the Welsh Government. Some do get grant funding as well. Some organisations get grant funding, whether you're a local authority or voluntary sector. Some only reliant on grant funding. The workforce capacity is very much an organisational issue, but I do recognise that is a huge area, and we do advocate for additional funding from with colleagues as well. But I'm going to go on to the sort of recruitment element. So I talked earlier about how we're recruiting people into the sector. Now, there's a couple of things that we're doing. As you know, we're looking at recruiting people, young people, volunteers to become youth workers or youth support workers. One of the things we've massively, in the last couple of years, ramped up level 3 training. So level 3 certificate in youth work practice is your first qualifying route if you want to get onto the paid role capacity. Obviously, some organisations don't require it. Majority do sort of require you to have your level 3 certificate in youth work practice, or at least be working towards. So what we're doing is we're working really hard with sector colleagues and those who are hoping to do their level 3 about how can we make this sizable for you? What can we do to make this qualification more palatable? As you can imagine, a level 3 is the equivalent of your A-levels. So when I done my A-levels, and I wasn't very successful at doing A-levels, it didn't take me, it took me 2 years. It took me quite a long time. And it's quite a lot. The intensity of the work is quite a lot. So we need to recognise that actually the qualification itself is quite sizable, but also there's the need for people to do this. So what can we do in between to support sector colleagues to get this done? Now, I've been working with Adult Learning Wales, for instance. They've changed some of their methods. At the Youth Work Training Academy, we very much target part-time people, because we appreciate that sometimes we need a great deal of flexibility in this course. At the same time, we also need a solid tutor that's able to be there when you are available as well. So we've picked that up quite a lot. We also need to do more to recruit people to do the degree or the postgraduate diploma. There are some methods that are going to be in practice soon. We're going to be doing some pilots to try and get people that have been working within the sector for a long, long time, got a lot of experience, that might not actually have a degree in youth work. So what we're looking at is how can we transform their experience into academic study, and how can we utilize advanced prior learning. So that's going to take a bit of time. There is a pilot that's due to take place in September. At the moment, we're still working through the detail, and we're working at such fast pace to get this uh, done. Once that pilot's taken place, funding dependent, we'll obviously try our best to look at a further rollout in terms of what that looks like. Then also within our workforce development plan, I'm just going to pop it out here. We've got a whole where we advocate for people to do the degree. But more specifically, one of the things we've asked is, so it says on here, recommendations for Welsh Government. It's actually on page 15, item 11. If you haven't read this yet, I suggest you do. Lastly, Welsh Government should consider including youth work programmes in the professional learning entitlement. So that professional learning entitlement is a budget within Welsh Government that pays for professional learning to formal education. At the moment, youth workers don't get access to that. So we're obviously strongly advocating for that. Furthermore, it says, and a bursary to fund practitioners to gain JNC youth work qualifying degrees or postgraduate diplomas once a service provision gap has been concluded, to encourage people into the sector, and for those practitioners operating as a youth support worker to professionally qualify and progress within their youth work career. So, we don't have a lot of money within the workforce development budget. We sort of get by on what we do. But if we was to look at formal BAs or postgraduate diplomas, that's a lot of money. As you know, I've done mine as well. That's a personal expense. I get that. However, I know that, with the cost of living and things like that, bursary programs should be considered. So that's something that we'll continue to advocate for as well. But one of the things we're going to be doing is conducting a study in terms of what are the real gaps in organizations. So as you all know, in your organization, you probably have a structure that says, how many youth workers, youth support workers, volunteers. If you're a voluntary sector, you might have trustees included in that. You might have other roles that are not youth work related, depending on how large your charity is. So we're going to be doing that work in terms of, okay, how many youth workers do you have and how many do you need within your current structure? But then we're also going to ask another question about, okay, yes, you've got your approved structure by either if you're local authority based or your board of trustees or charity, but actually, what should we have from a blue sky thinking? What actually should we have for you to be able to benefit your community? So that piece of work is due to happen September onwards in the form of a survey. That survey, then we will know is how many people are we in deficiency with, basically. Please bear with us. So that was around the recruitment. Retention-wise, it's a really hard one. What good retention is? So with retention, one of the things we try and do is we can't decide whether people can get paid, more or anything like that. That's not something that we can decide. That's up to an organisation, whether they get paid extra to sort of try and keep them in post. But one of the things we're trying to do nationally is to provide as much training and learning opportunities for practitioners so they feel equipped and therefore happy in their roles and they stay. So for instance, we qualified quite a few people last year to become qualified assessors, IQAs actually, and that's made them be able to progress within their roles and their service as well. It also means that, looking from a youth work qualifications perspective, that actually they can deliver that within their organisations as well. So that's more around the retention element. We're trying our best to sort of keep people within the sector. In terms of funding, that's being translated to frontline support rather than maintaining the provision that is currently in operation. Again, one of the things we're looking to do, and we are going to do more regional development work. One of the things we've got coming up, and we sort of piloted this last year, a learner support fund. Each region will be allocated a certain amount of money, which they can apply for. Whether you're a voluntary sector or local authority, you can apply for that bit of money, especially if you've got a specific learning needs within that area. Last year, we had a really good two sort of pilots that happened. One noticeable one was in North Wales. So the North Wales sort of conglomerate, so Conwy led the application process, but the reason it was so strong is because they had the support from all the other local authorities within that region, plus the voluntary sector. And when I attended the fantastic buzz, but a lot of learning was going on. What I will do is I'll put a link to within the description for you to have a look at. The applications won't be open yet. But if you want to receive information about when applications are on, the best thing to do is to subscribe to our newsletter or our WhatsApp, and I'll put all the links in the chat box, not the chat box, the description box shortly after. So thank you very much, Heather, for your question on that one. I couldn't answer it fully, especially with regards to the sort of funding element. However, we're on your side. We're trying our best to advocate on your behalf. And the information you've given me today, I'll obviously take back to the Workforce Development Group. So thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the third point. So this question came up actually twice, but the person's quote I'm going to use, actually, this person rung me up to give me this question. Can you remember that, ringing up? Why is there such a focus on the youth work level 3 and a degree? Well, I think, to be honest, the reason there is because when you get your level 3 or your degree, it means you can register with the Education Workforce Council, which is obviously a good thing. It means that you've got that sort of professionalism within your service as well. Now, legally, the law states in terms of registration, you need to register if you're qualified and working with young people in a youth work capacity. So that's what the law sort of says. However, if you're not doing that, that's fine. One of the things we're trying to do is, like I said, is to try and make the level 3s and the degree more palatable as much as possible. There is a focus on it. Obviously, there is a strong belief that when you're qualified, that your practice becomes better. You're also exposed to the sort of principles and purposes behind youth work, methodology, the theories that really unpick the practice as well. So yes, there is a push on level 3s. I understand that, and I understand for those who are working in the sector for a long time and not done a formal youth work qualification, then to sort of think, there's a big push on this. I 100% understand where you're coming from. However, we're trying to make the qualification a bit more palatable for you to complete as well. But again, you've got experience. If you have got experience, then hopefully we're going to be able to be in a position where we can utilize that experience with advanced prior learning as well. So I'm going to ask another question. This one again was anonymous, and again, that's fine. What does the changes in the youth work legislation mean for the sector? So I'm assuming that's with the, so within the Learning and Skills Act, there is obviously youth work written in that. Within that, obviously, this legislation changed in April 2026. So 1st of April 2026, the new legislation came into force. The biggest change is the legal definition of what youth work is. And it's not to be confused with the philosophical definition of youth work as well. So obviously, when you look at the principles and purposes document, which is, I'll get that for you a moment, which is here, okay, that has a philosophical and theoretical based definition, which is different to the legal. But obviously, one of the things that the legislation says is led by qualified youth support workers and youth workers. So I think that's what it means, I think. So at the moment, I think that's been unpicked a bit more. We are seeing a jump of people wanting to do the qualifying routes to sort of fit in with that definition. So one of the things that Quivis are doing, and a big shout out to Quivis for this, they've been lobbying Welsh Government to ask for support to get people to do their level 3 so that they're able to register with the EWC then and qualify as a youth support worker, sorry. So there was a program in place that looked at backfill of money when you're doing your youth work role. The organisation gets paid for you to sort of leave, do your study as well. Whether that's happening again, we don't know. From that point onwards, we had a change of government, change of First Minister, and the direction is unclear as we currently are. My hope is that it does happen again, that we expand it a little bit wider with the learning that we've learned from the previous as well. So I think that's the biggest sort of change, to be honest with you. Youth work will still be youth work. So what it was before April is still the same after April, but the definitions and structures around it slightly change. It doesn't mean that you have to change your approach. If you're working within the principles and purposes, please keep doing that. Okay, I'm going to ask a question here, another anonymous, and this one was given to me on the link, and this one is around the social media ban. So this person's a youth worker with more than 15 years of experience. Thank you for your question. I won't name you. But what impact do you think social media ban will have on youth workers in their work with young people? Do you think it will still go ahead? At the moment, all I can do is speculate. So I think it's going to have a huge impact, the social media ban. We just done a huge uptick of social media training for the sector, so they're able to engage with young people who are always on social media. So from a workforce development perspective, yeah, that's going to change massively. We don't actually know what the ban looks like. We know that there's, a proposed banned apps that's likely to take place for those who are under 16, but the detail of that hasn't come out yet. So I think at the moment we can only speculate. Do you think you'll still go ahead given the political pressure? Yes, I think it still will. I think there was a lot of call for it from political parties, across all parties. But yeah, I don't, in terms of what impact, I think the biggest impact will be we'll have to change the way in which we communicate with young people. As we know, we do a lot of communicating through social media as well. So yeah, sorry to give a very ambiguous answer, but yeah, I think it still will go ahead, and I think there will be an impact. In terms of what impact, I think to be confirmed. I think there's been a lot of question around it. One of the things I was delighted to hear was that it looks likely that there will be youth work representation on a cross-party task and finish group around the social media ban. Amazing. Let's get youth workers around the table as much as possible to discuss the social media ban and how this will impact young people and then impact the service as well. So thank you for that one. I'm going to jump ahead very quickly. This was from Mel Ryan. Mel Ryan, thank you for your question. So Mel is one of the joint CEOs of Youth Cymru. Youth Cymru is a fantastic organisation. They offer a lot of training that we've done in partnership with Youth Cymru. They recently delivered the expressive 5-pillar workshops that we were doing. So thank you to Mel and Shannon for that. And they've done countless training for us. So again, thank you, Youth Cymru. But good one here because they managed the communications element within youth work. How can we best support youth work organisations in Wales to gather evidence and share the impact of their work with young people in a way that is meaningful, practical and proportionate? Wow, that is a huge question, Mel. So I've asked a few colleagues around this, and I know we've discussed it at length, Mel, so thank you for that. But how can you guys best support youth work organisations to gather evidence? The biggest thing is we all have different data sets, don't we? We all gather the views of young people slightly differently, the outcomes a little bit differently elsewhere. But I do think this fits massively in with promoting youth work as a career, because actually that's what sells youth work as a career, isn't it? It's the impact that youth work has to do with young people, because young people love podcasting, the whole setup, the actual doing of it is such a good way to engage young people. In terms of how they, the impact that has had on them as well. But I do think we need to do more case studies from practitioners as well, based on the work they're doing with young people as well. I think we need to support Youth Cymru, to be honest with you, to do this, because Youth Cymru obviously have the contract to deliver this, but they can't do it on their own. We need to support. So we're the ones with the front-facing opportunities for young people. So let's get around Youth Cymru and support them with this. When there's a call for case studies, when there's a call for specific projects, let's do our best to support that call. Thank you, Mel, for that question. Again, apologies I didn't answer that fully, and I think we need to do more to support Youth Cymru with the comms and marketing element of that. So the last question is, what can be done to encourage people to do the degree? I've been in youth work since 2010 and cannot afford tuition. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry you can afford the tuition fees. I appreciate they have risen, and bursaries for funded spaces for the degrees, are few and far between. It's good when organisations do that, but obviously not all our organisations have the budgets to do that, whether you're voluntary sector or local authorities. I imagine there's a bit of a squeeze. I won't name you because obviously you asked not to, but my plea is to look at student finance. Some grants are means tested. And again, I'll just go back to my original point. We're obviously advocating for a bursary system within Wales to pay for youth worker qualifying routes within Wales. But please look at student finance to see what support is available, and to see, if there are any grants in your local area as well. to do that. But as a workforce development group, we are looking at this quite heavily. And I appreciate at the moment we've got nothing to sort of say, this is how you can pay for tuition. We can't do that. We don't have the budget to do that, but we'll always advocate to get more budget for that, which is why it's really important when the gap analysis or the gap survey comes out to identify the deficiencies of youth workers and new support workers across Wales. Please engage as much as possible, because that will tell us a target number of youth workers we need to recruit, which gives us a bit more leverage to Welsh Government colleagues and others to say this is why we need a bursary system here in Wales for youth with qualifications. So they've been the questions, folks. So thank you very much for listening. I tried to keep it under half an hour, and I think we've done that. But a big plea for me, just before you go, is we do a lot of training for the sector. It's on our Eventbrite. So if you want updates on any training that we put on, follow our Eventbrite. You get an instant ping to your inbox. But I must stress, when you do book onto any training or opportunities, please make every effort to attend. I appreciate some things happen and sometimes the job takes precedent. I get it. Or, family takes over. I get it 100%. But we're finding a big rate of people dropping out. So we've had courses where we had it completely full, 35 spaces gone, and then we might have about 10 people turn up. Again, it's just not sustainable for us. So please do your absolute, if you do book on, is to attend. If there are any barriers, please reach out to me. As you feel free to email ets@wlga.gov.uk. And then we can sort of look into that for you. But again, please, if you have booked on, please do your utmost or cancel your space. On Eventbrite, you can cancel your space. We're in this unfortunate situation. We probably have to start charging organisations the fee. And that's something that I've tried to avoid since I've been in post. And as colleagues will know, I was really hesitant to do that. But that's something that we're looking at. Again, we want to do another plea from me. Is we want to do more YouTube live sessions with colleagues across Wales. To do that, we need some more subscribers. At the moment, we actually can't. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, if you've liked what you're listening to, press the like button, which is a little thumbs up button. I would appreciate it. It also gets us noticed to other colleagues within the sector as well. Again, a couple of things I'll put in the description box. But to stay informed, there's a couple of things you can do. You can sign up to our newsletter. Our newsletter has training monthly bulletins. And so it gives you a list of training that the Youth Work Training Academy does, along with other providers all across Wales. Most of it completely free of charge at the point of delivery. Again, when I say free, it means it's free for you to take part, but it obviously comes to a cost as well. This is why it's really important when you do book onto these things, you see it through as much as you possibly can. We also have a WhatsApp service which gives you updates on things as well. So we've all got WhatsApp on our phones, so it's one of those things you'll always have on your phones. We'll put updates on there regularly. And again, I mentioned our Eventbrite. If you follow our Eventbrite, as soon as we put events on there, ping, it comes to your mailbox, which means you're not relying on others sending it to you as well. Again, folks, if there's anything that I can do to support you within the sector, then please reach out. So the email address again is ets@wlga.gov.uk, so it's .gov.uk. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all soon. Enjoy the rest of your day and week, folks.